A painting with a few scribbles worth tens of millions of dollars is, in reality, nothing more than a carefully framed financial instrument. The glamorous velvet curtain of art often deludes the masses regarding the true meaning of the colossal transactions within the market. Anyone with common sense would wonder why a piece of canvas, smeared with messy patches of color, offering no practical utility, can be valued at an entire fortune. The answer lies in that very core uselessness. In a world governed by cold economic laws, consumer goods always have a price ceiling because they are bound by materials and utility value. A luxury car or a sprawling mansion, no matter how expensive, only serves specific needs and can be completely replicated. In contrast, a work of art is a non-functional asset, one that cannot be converted into practical use value, and it is precisely this blurred boundary that liberates it from all conventional valuation limits. It is the greatest symbol of absolute exclusivity. You can manufacture thousands of identical expensive items, but an original painting exists as only one single entity in the entire world. For the elite, those who already possess a surplus of all common material things, what they hunger for is not a decorative item, but an ironclad testament to their power. Owning something one of a kind is the swiftest means to draw a clear line between themselves and the rest of humanity. Furthermore, this intangible asset serves as a perfect store of value. It does not wear out over time, is not subject to price regulation by any authority, and is completely immune to the devaluation of paper currency. When the macroeconomy fluctuates, massive flows of capital silently seek a safe haven, and those painted canvases instantly transform into invisible bars of pure gold. Easily rolled up and circulated across the globe, the most ruthless law of this market is revealed when we realize that the value of a work usually only truly explodes once its creator stops breathing. Emotions of pity or tributes to a legacy plastered across the newspapers are merely a beautiful veneer for a cold economic principle, which is that the supply has been permanently shut down. As long as a painter is alive, their studio remains a printing press that has not been turned off, and the number of potential works is always infinite. This state of infinity is the natural enemy of scarcity. But at the very moment the creator draws their last breath, the entire catalogue of work immediately turns into a closed box. Never again will an original brushstroke be born into this world. That absolute scarcity provides a solid guarantee for the players, stripping away any risk of the market being diluted by new supply. Observers have even pointed out a chillingly mathematical progression. The skyrocketing prices in the final years of an aging, frail artist's life, the moment when buyers begin to splash cash, betting on an impending funeral. They feverishly collect the works not out of an admiration for beauty, but because they know the biological countdown will soon trigger a profit explosion. Additionally, a sudden or mysterious departure always draws massive public attention. The dealers and market puppet masters immediately seize this opportunity to weave immortal myths. By manipulating the psychology of the masses and elevating an individual to a sacred icon, they easily establish astronomical prices for the remaining works. In this Game of Thrones, the end of a life is merely the final seal required to guarantee the eternal expensiveness of the asset. The fact that estate management organizations subsequently implement a drip feed strategy, releasing each painting with extreme caution, is clear evidence of the manipulation of potential buyers' hunger to maintain the product's monopolistic position on the auction block. This irrationality in valuation paves the way for another truth. One subtly hidden under the guise of academic culture, the art market is the most perfect money-purifying machine ever operated. Completely different from all traditional financial markets that are strictly monitored by numbers and legal systems, paintings survive in a massive gray area of subjectivity. The value of a plot of land, a ton of coal, or a barrel of oil can be clearly appraised based on factual data. But absolutely no one in the world has the ability to produce a mathematical equation to prove that a brushstroke is not worth $50 million. This absolute ambiguity is a privilege tailor-made for assets that need to be concealed. Imagine a pragmatic scenario where someone holding the upper hand needs to legitimize a massive amount of illicit money from unknown sources. That person simply spends a few tens of thousands of dollars to buy a painting by an unknown artist, keeps it for a while, and then, through a tangled web of connections, pushes that work into a prestigious auction. On this stage, an anonymous third party, who is actually a link in the same chain, will raise their paddle to buy that painting for $10 million. The gavel falls, the transaction is complete, and that shady sum of money is instantly draped in a radiant robe of legitimacy as profit gained from art trading. The mechanism of absolute anonymity at auction houses allows players to hide their true identities behind shell companies or intermediary brokers. No one can trace who is actually transferring money to whom. The artwork has now completely transformed into a powerful passport, a flexible tool to move capital across national borders without hitting any legal barriers. What is being bartered here has never been art, but rather the service of transforming the legality of money. The shepherds always know how to use beautiful words about devotion to beauty to drown out the sound of money counters running incessantly behind the velvet curtain. Not stopping at regular auctions, this system also cloaks itself in a magnificent moral mantle through lavish charity galas. Under the bright lights and resounding applause, powerful figures cheerfully compete to throw down colossal figures to buy paintings, citing the noble cause of donating to save the community. However, behind that elaborately performed generosity are meticulous calculations of asset defense techniques. In many financial regulatory systems, donating artworks or purchasing them from charitable foundations brings an enormous tax exemption privilege. A person who splashes out a few $1 million to own a work at a party can use that transaction record to offset the massive income tax they would otherwise have to pay into the public treasury. In some cases, the amount of tax reduced far exceeds the actual capital they spent to buy the painting initially. Another common technique is to collect works at dirt-cheap prices, then hire a network of trusted appraisers to inflate their value hundreds of times over, and then donate those works to a museum. That inflated valuation naturally becomes a get-out-of-jail-free card for their financial obligations. They keep the money in their pockets, acquire more invisible power, and leisurely walk away with the aura of a great philanthropist. The cash flow actually just circulates within a closed ecosystem, while the prey at the bottom of the pyramid look up in admiration, completely unaware that they are witnessing a perfectly staged play of manipulation. Charitable funds act as a lubricating gear in this machine of interests, where compassion is merely a cheap, raw material burned to operate massive privileges. To protect the integrity of this entire machine from the skepticism of the crowd, those in control need a solid, defensive barrier of theory. This is when critics and gallery curators step onto the pedestal, assuming the role of loyal gatekeepers of a religion they authored themselves. When standing before a painting of chaotic color patches, an average person's intuition would tell them it is worthless. Yet, they are immediately bombarded by a series of commentaries using extremely complex, ambiguous, and abstract language. Vague concepts like the deconstruction of reality, challenging visual norms, or messages transcending the era pour out like a waterfall. The true purpose of these glittering words is not to communicate beauty, but to build a fortress of intellectual intimidation. It sends a sharp psychological blade. If you cannot perceive the great value of that colored surface, it is purely because you are ignorant and lack class. This manipulation makes the prey voluntarily doubt their own perception and quietly submit to the guidance of their superiors. The house has cleverly created a perfect echo chamber where prestigious publications, long-standing museums, and academia unite to praise an individual. They manually set the starting price, manually write the celebratory articles, and manually organize large-scale exhibitions to inflate the stature of a work. This game affirms a ruthless law. Value does not lie in the streaks of color on the canvas, but in the power to dictate belief. When a closed power system agrees that something is priceless, the media machine will force the entire society to bow down and accept that price. Highbrow critiques and profound theories are the invisibility cloaks woven to cover up the nakedness of pure commercial calculation. It molds the minds of innocent children, forcing them to kneel before a grand illusion, rather than being sober enough to realize they are lost in a gargantuan maze of manipulation. When a system is perfectly programmed to turn absurdity into truth, Are we worshipping beauty? Or are we just obediently bowing our heads to the invisible powers that are silently pricing the entire world?